Welcome, everybody on into Brown Table Sports. In case you have no idea who I am, my name is Josh Halprin, and today we are going to be going through my midseason mock draft. I'm expecting a lot of new faces here. Welcome to everybody that's new. Very excited to have you. Welcome on into Brown Table Sports. Please take a seat. Let's get this thing rolling. Starting off, the New England Patriots. You can't see them because of my face cam, but I'll move it real quick just so you can see it's New England. Not lying to you. New England's taking Travis Hunter. New England is a team, look, they need help everywhere. You guys got to help out Drake May, your third overall pick last year. They got Jalen Polk in the draft last year as well out of Washington, who's been pretty solid for them, I believe. I don't know off the top of my head, but they wouldn't be picking first overall if he'd been all that. I'm pretty sure that they were starting Drake May. Yeah, I know they were. I made a meme about it for our predictions for, I believe it was week 6, but I could be wrong there. Either way, no matter what, New England's picking first for a reason, and when you're picking first, you need a game changer. I want to preface this. This draft is weird, guys. This draft is really, really weird. Normally, we're used to seeing a bunch of top end quarterbacks. We're used to seeing, maybe offensive or defensive linemen going first overall. But we've got a combination defensive back wide receiver here, which is, to my knowledge, the first time that that's really happening. I know the Lions picked Jeff Okudah third overall in 2020. Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley got picked third and fourth overall in 2022. Uh, there's definitely a market for corners now and really just athleticism in the league. Travis Hunter is arguably the most athletic prospect that we have ever seen being able to play both sides of the ball in college and, doing it at a very high level. Looking at his receiving stats, you've got. He's already at 757 yards and 8 touchdowns this season. That's crazy. I'm sorry, I've got his stats pulled up on a different computer, but that's crazy. Especially if this guy is also playing defensive back. This guy plays literally every single snap for Colorado and Coach Prime, and I cannot think of a better addition to a team that needs a game changer and needs a game changer badly. Next up here, I've got Will Johnson. Will Johnson is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Second overall, I find it really weird that a two defensive backs are going to be taken first and second overall. But honestly, like, if this is the order that we finish with, this is based off of week 8 rankings or week 9 rankings, whatever it is. Week nine rankings. This is based off week 9 rank. This list is based off week 9 rankings, and I don't think it's entirely out of the question for two defensive backs to be first and second overall for the first time that we've ever seen it. Will Johnson is a very talented player. He hasn't been playing many snaps for Michigan this year because Michigan's been really bad. Who can blame him for not wanting to play for such a garbage team? Sorry, State fan. A little bit of bias there. He does have 2 interceptions this year. He does have 14 tackles. In seasons past, he has had 7 picks total. Whole bunch of passes defended. Former 5-star, same thing as Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was actually the number 1 overall prospect in 2022, I believe. And Will Johnson was also a 5-star, I believe, in the top 10, but I could be wrong there. Not 100% sure. Not staying home this time. Going from Michigan to Jacksonville to help out a struggling Jacksonville Jaguars team that is looking to find their footing with their young quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Next pick, third overall, is the Saints. They are taking Tedoriola McMillan out of Arizona. They've got Chris Olave. They've got Derek Carr. They've got a very talented offensive line. They've got a very talented defense. They're, I believe, made some trades to solidify that defense, made it a little bit better. They got Brian Brzee, who I think is very underrated. And if Slanty Boy Mike Evans can't get back, Mike Evans is not Slanty Boy. If Slanty Boy Mike Thomas, not Mike Evans, Mike Thomas, Michael Thomas, if he can't get back into the lineup, then they really only have Chris Olave and Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill is a combination tight end quarterback, whatever you need him to be. Kamara's been showing this year that he's not done. I don't think he's going to be done next year either. We thought Henry was washed at the beginning of the year, but he's not. He's actually the best running back and should be an MVP favorite. And if it wasn't such a quarterback heavy award, he probably would be. If if the Saints want to get better, you got to start building blocks as to where you're, because these teams that are picking at the top, they need help everywhere. There's not one specific area that they need help in. A lot of these teams have young quarterbacks, and I do think that quarterback is definitely in play here for the Saints, but I also don't think that they've put themselves into a position where they really need to pick one, having Derek Carr and having Rattler, who's also proven that he can be somewhat capable. He was a former 5 star, and I think that if you gave him to the keys to the offense, he'd do an okay job. I don't think he'd be stellar by any means, but I don't think you can write him off as being, complete garbage. Let's look at McMillan's stats here. McMillan is also the brother of Jalen McMillan, who plays for the Buccaneers and was drafted in the third round last year out of Washington after helping his team make the college football playoff championship and then losing to Michigan. All right, pulling it up now. McMillan has 6 touchdowns on the season already, has over 1,000 yards, and is averaging just about 16 yards per catch. That's pretty good. That's somebody that can help Chris Olave not get double teamed all the time. If you want your quarterbacks to excel, we need to stop rushing young quarterbacks in this league. All right, if we want quarterbacks to excel, we need to A, give them time, B, give them weapons, and C, give them protection. Those are the 3 most important things for quarterback success. Give them trust, because when somebody trusts themselves, they are more confident in making more difficult throws. You need to be able to give these guys weapons that they can actually throw to so they're not constantly being asked to make plays. And you need to give these guys protection and time. And the best way to do that is to build a team around a quarterback and then take said quarterback. In my opinion, at least, that's what the Lions did. And now we're seeing how well that's going. That is what the Kansas City Chiefs did by sitting Patrick Mahomes for a year in 2017 and starting Alex Smith. That's what successful teams do, because we see how well the Chiefs are doing now. That's what good teams do. Brock Purdy is being written off and has been his entire career for being Mr. Irrelevant because he doesn't really need to make all that many plays because there's already a super team built around him. Quarterback play isn't as important when you have people around you to give you time and make plays and give you confidence. Those are the most important things for a quarterback. Moving on, I've got the Panthers taking every single thing that I just said, every single piece of advice that I just gave, throwing it right out the window. And that was an air ball, by the way. I didn't make that. Uh, they're taking Cam Ward. They're ending the Bryce Young experiment. I think that this is very similar to what the Bears did with Justin Fields, ironically, because the Panthers traded up to take Bryce Young, and then with the Bears, and then end up getting rid of him. So I find that kind of funny, but the key difference here between Cam Ward and Bryce Young, I think, is that Cam Ward plays a very different style of ball than Bryce Young plays. Bryce Young needs to be confident. Cam is literally the most nonchalant quarterback in the entire NCAA right now. He's a Heisman finalist, doesn't act like it, and when you see him make plays, he looks effortless. He looks like he's not trying. He looks like he's not hustling. That's the kind of composure that the Panthers need in a pocket that will not stay clean. He doesn't have guys to make plays for him. He doesn't have time. You need a guy who can keep his composure while you build that team around him. In my opinion, at least. When you look at a team like the Saints, they're not going to take Ward because they have other underlying needs. And when you get the chance to pair a guy like McMillan with a guy like Olave, you're looking at a wide receiver tandem that I just don't think you can pass up. But the Panthers don't really have much going for them right now. They did just re-sign Chuba Hubbard, which I love. Chuba Hubbard has been a GOAT for me in fantasy this year. Thank you, Chuba. But other than that, I think you can literally just go BPA right here. They need a quarterback. They're gonna trade Bryce Young for some sort of. I'd love to see him go to Miami, Bryce Young, but they're gonna trade. They're gonna trade him, and they're gonna take a guy. because you're entering a new regime, you're entering a new system, and that new system needs to get their quarterback. And in my opinion, that quarterback is Cam Ward, the best quarterback in football right now, the best quarterback in college football right now, I should say. Fifth overall, I've got the Browns taking Kelvin Banks out of Texas. Look, Deshaun Watson hasn't been the answer, and we all know that. But I don't think that the Browns and Shador Sanders are a match made in heaven. I don't think that that's who they're looking at. I think they're looking at a guy who can come in and, like I've been saying, before you take a quarterback, you need to build the team around him. You know, or the Browns could be a Bryce Young trading spot. Who knows? But either way, I don't think they like a quarterback in this class. I don't think they're taking a quarterback in this class as of right now. And I think that they want to go offensive line because the best way that, especially if they do trade for Bryce Young, which now that I'm thinking about it could be awesome, is if you immediately go and get him some help because Jerry Judy. Did he play with Jerry Judy in college? I don't think so, right? Because Jerry Judy was drafted in 2020. However, you what am I trying to say? They don't like quarterback here. They're going offensive line. They take the best offensive tackle that they can possibly take, and then they don't look back because you've got your franchise offensive tackle for the next 10 years. That's how good I think Calvin Banks is. Sixth overall, I've got Colorado taking Shador Sanders. This has been a kind of linked thing. It's been pretty heavily mocked, and I don't hate it, honestly. When you look at the kind of play style that the Raiders do play with, Shador matches that. They want a guy that's cocky. They want a guy that's confident. They want that in Vegas. It's their mannerism. Or not mannerism, but it's the build that they're looking for. He's got that mentality. He's got that dog. Like Deion Sanders' son is not going to come in and be humble. He's going to come in and he's going to compete, and that's the kind of player that the Raiders are getting here. The Raiders have a lot of question marks when it comes to their quarterback right now. Do they go Minshew? Do they go O'Connell? And do they move forward with the other guys? I personally really like Minshew and would really love to see him get a chance. But, that might not be how the Raiders feel. I don't think that's how the Raiders feel. So they're taking Shador. You get him, tossing it up to Brock Bowers, to Jacoby Myers. And you see how else you can round out this draft, because this draft I haven't really noted, but is very, very deep in receiver talent and just in talent in general with defensive backs as well. I think, and especially with defensive ends too. There's a lot of really good defensive ends in this class, but there's not really much depth when it comes to quarterbacks. So teams you will see, jump up and take their quarterback opportunities. And if the Raiders can get Shador, then I don't see any reason why they shouldn't do that. Seventh overall, I've got Will Campbell going to the Giants. Look, Giants fans, look, Zach, all right? Look, Brendan, look, Jake. I know you guys are going to give me some hate for this, for them not taking a quarterback. Daniel Jones is bad, but once again, there are guys you can trade for. There are guys that you can get. There are guys that you can develop that I don't necessarily think New York's biggest priority is quarterback right now, and I don't think that there's a New York ready quarterback, because no rookie quarterback is ready to walk into that system and have immediate success or have success at all. In fact, they will have a very bad year. So you get a guy that is going to be a solid offensive tackle for you to have next to Andrew, or with Andrew Thomas on that line for years to come. Will Campbell could go before Calvin Banks, but I don't think he's going to. The LSU offensive line class in this entire mock draft has been amazing. I'm pretty sure there's another LSU offensive lineman on here. And yeah, I just think you got to take your offensive line and just not look back, because New York doesn't really have any big glaring holes defensively. Of course, quarterback is an issue. Of course, running back is an issue. But when you see the chance to improve that offensive line, I think you kind of have to do it. And with a class that is so deep in so many other positions outside of the offensive line, when you have your chance to get a guy in the top 10 picks who could be on your team for the next 10 years, I say you take him and don't look back. Moving on to pick 8, I've got the Miami Dolphins taking Malachi Starks out of Georgia. I really like this pick. I think that Miami, they have their number one thing is speed, and Georgia plays with speed, man. Like this guy, Malachi Starks, he is fast. I like him staying close to home. I like him getting trained up by Jalen Ramsey. I like all the things that he can bring to your defense. This guy already has 43 total tackles on the season, and he's got 27 of those solo. This guy's not going to miss tackles, and that is such an important trait for defensive players to or defensive backs to have, because you want your guys picking and defending balls, but also they're the last line of defense, so they better be able to make an open field tackle. And Malachi Starks is better at that than anybody else in this. Or not better than anybody else, but he's one of the best. You are not getting a bad defensive back if you take him. Hi, y'all. Before we move on, as you can see these, next few picks in front of me from my mock draft, I want to take a second and pause and ask you all to please, if you're enjoying this, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I'm not going to beg for it, but, if you're enjoying, I do suggest that you do so. And my team and I put in a lot of hard work on our YouTube videos as well as our Instagram page and our website. If you want to check either of those out, you can look up Roundtable Sports on Instagram or look up roundtablesports.com on any browser, and it will immediately take you to our website. Highly suggest you check it out. There are some great articles on there written by one of my very good friends, Max Fenster. More articles coming soon. All of this stuff is still a work in progress, and I ask that you do bear with us as we figure all this stuff out. But if you're enjoying the content that we make, then I ask that you support it, because the only way that this is going to grow is if we all support it, and we all engage with it, and we all have fun with it. So with that, thank you, and let's get back to the video. All right, ninth overall, I've got the Titans taking Quinn Ewers out of Texas. He has been hurt a little bit this season. Arch Manning needed to step up for him and did an amazing job doing so, but Tennessee cannot expect to see any success with Will Levis or with Mason Rudolph still at quarterback. They need a guy that can come in and get Tennessee some wins, some fans, and some confidence, because right now they have none of that. They have a guy that gets memed every week because he's terrible. All right? He loves mayonnaise, but he's terrible. They take Quinn Ewers, arguably the greatest quarterback prospect ever since, Arch Manning came along. I feel like we've said that a lot lately, by the way. It's really weird. First we had Trevor Lawrence coming out, then we had Quinn Ewers, and now we have Arch Manning, and then, there's the guy that committed to LSU out of Belleville, Michigan. I'm forgetting what his name is right now, but it'll come to me eventually. Anyways, doesn't matter. They're taking Ewers because Ewers sparks something into this offense, and you can get pieces around him later, but Tennessee needs a spark, and that spark is going to be Ewers. Moving on to the 10th pick, we have Mason Graham out of Michigan going to the New York Jets. I really like this pick. I really like pairing Graham and Williams together in that front seven. And I think he's a guy that's, not going to miss tackles for you, not going to let guys through gaps. And he's a big body, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this man is 6'3", 320, and has 16 solo tackles with 3.5 sacks on the season. End of the day, he's a big body. You hear his name on every single play. He's a big presence right in the front and center of that line, and he's a guy that the Jets, I think, will absolutely love having on their defense. This next pick, pick 11, might be one of my favorite mocks in the whole draft. I absolutely love Ashton Jeanty staying close to home and going to the Dallas Cowboys here. The Cowboys do have a very, very bad defense. Not very, very bad. They got Parsons, and they have Trayvon Diggs. But all in all, their defense really, really needs to step up, and that's something that they can tackle later on in the draft because it's a very deep class for defense. But you're looking at a guy that's putting up Barry Sanders level numbers. You're looking at a guy who, with your offensive line, could excel. I like Ashton Jeanty is being put in the best possible spot for success if he goes to the Cowboys. I don't think that there's a better team for him. I don't think that there's a better fit for him. I don't think that there's a better use for him than on this team. And I think that if he's still sitting there for the Cowboys, you take him and you don't look back. He should be probably the only running back that goes first round in this draft. But, he's very, very deserving of it. He's putting up insane numbers, Barry Sanders level numbers, should win the Heisman probably. hopefully well, if not for, yeah, you know, hopefully he'll win the Heisman, is what I'm trying to say. Guy to Boise. We know him. We love him. He stands there like this. You know, he's he's a guy to take. He's a guy to take. He'd be good on the Cowboys. Moving on to 12th, I've got Abdul Carter going to the Colts. Colts need pass rush. Abdul Carter's right there for them. You can worry about Richardson later. Yep, 34 tackles on the season, 6 sacks and 1 forced fumble. The Penn State product goes to the Colts here. They pair him up with Latu Latu, who they drafted last year, and don't really think much else about it because you've got a front there that is going to be causing quarterbacks problems. Moving on to pick 13, I've got a guy who has been mocked first overall before, before the season started. Could still definitely find his way into the top 10 if he picks up his production, but James Pierce Jr. is a menace out of Tennessee. The Bengals get him here at 13 and don't really think much else about it. You need pass rush. The Bengals have not been generating much pressure all year. And when you get a guy like James Pierce, who is currently at 4.5 sacks, but last year registered 9.5 sacks and has only shown to be getting better with each year in terms of production in his career, playing for the Tennessee Vols, who are 7-1 on the season, in part to his help. Um, Bengals need pass rush. The Bengals have 20 sacks on the season, which is very, very good, but over half of those are from Trey Hendrickson. So he is probably the reason that a lot of that stuff is going on. You have to double team that guy, and if you get a guy like James Pierce on the other side that can just be disruptive for you, then I just think you take it and you don't look back. And I know I've said that a lot in this video, but like I truly mean it. Like sometimes there are just picks where you just got to go BPA. You know that he's going to help out your team, and you just take the pick, you add him to your squad, and you don't look back because you know that he's going to be a solid player for the next 5 to 10 years. Moving on to pick 14, I have Michael Williams, the defensive end out of Georgia, going to the Buccaneers to help out Vita Vea. Vita Vea. Vita Vea. It's such a fun name to say. Anyways, Michael Williams out of Georgia. Current stats on the year are 2 sacks with a forced fumble, 9 total tackles, 6 of them solo. So he hasn't been really getting much action, but I take it that that's probably because he's getting double teamed a lot. I don't know. I need to watch more Georgia football this year. But once again, another one of those guys where, he is 6'5", 265. You put him on the end. Vita Vea is going to get in there. He's going to get in there. You take it. You don't look back because he's going to help your offensive line or your defensive line. I'm sorry, generate more pressure and be better and get more sacks. The same can be said for Nick Scorton, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. He played a game a few weeks ago. I'm not sure who it was against, actually. Let me check. In the loss to South Carolina, he did not generate much pressure at all, as well as in never mind. He's been putting up some pretty decent stats this year. 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. The Texas A&M defensive end stands at 6'4", 285. You add him to the defensive front. I believe I had him mocked to the Steelers in my first mock draft. I'm not swaying from that, even though there was a comment that said that they don't need defensive help. I'm pretty sure you guys do. Couldn't beat the Lions. I don't know what. How have the Seahawks been doing? As a team, they've generated 28 sacks, so that's definitely not the worst in the world. It's probably in the top half of the league, but if you're the Seahawks, I don't really think there are any areas at this point in the draft where you can get better. So you just kind of re-solidify that defensive line, get Jonathan Brooks some help, get all your guys because you took him last year. Get him some more pass rush and help. Get all these guys some help, and just keep it going. This pick, I really, really like this next one. I've got the Rams taking Carson Beck. I've got them taking Carson Beck because I like the idea of Stafford mentoring the next Georgia quarterback to take over for the Rams. I think Carson Beck, having sat and stayed at Georgia for as long as he had, it's not easy to get that starting job, but he sat there and waited his turn. And I think that is a trait that a lot of teams don't really look for in their quarterbacks anymore. They want a guy that's going to start immediately. But with Stafford and Carson Beck, with this pick, you are giving Stafford time to teach Beck the offense. You are telling Stafford that there is absolutely no rush to the longevity of his career because Beck is just going to sit there and learn from him, just like Jordan Love did with Aaron Rodgers. Because that is what you're supposed to do with quarterbacks. Do not rush Beck. Beck, if you rush him, is not going to do well. But if you give him the time to, get garbage time snaps, get preseason snaps, get first team practice, in practice, but for his first season, have him just not play, have him redshirt. For his second season, even if Stafford is still playing, you have him redshirted then too. For however long Stafford plays, Stafford is your guy until you feel confident that Beck can take over for him. And that's when you make the switch. But I like the idea of uh, Carson Beck, who's a prototypical quarterback, having the time to develop. And then I like the idea of pairing him with a guy like Puka Nakua. And, the Rams also do need offensive line, but you can get that later in this draft because it is a very, very deep draft class. All right, 17th overall, I've got Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback out of Notre Dame, going to the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers get another steal here and get a guy that is going to absolutely take their defense from next level to even more next level. His stats this year, I'm not going to lie to you, are not impressive. He's got 20 tackles, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, and 0 interceptions, and the answer is clear. Because people are not putting the ball in his direction at all. He is so scary on this 7-1 Notre Dame team right now that nobody wants the ball anywhere close to him. All right, this guy with his 20 total tackles, 14 of them are solo. He's not letting people get past him, and he's not letting them get the ball. They're not throwing the ball in his direction. If I had to guess correctly, because his passes defended, how many does he have? 3. He has 3 total passes defended, which is crazy at this point in the season. They add Morrison. You don't look back. Another key part of your defensive front, or not defensive front, but a part of your secondary, and just a solid piece to have if he develops correctly, which I have absolute faith in Kyle Shanahan of doing. 18th overall, I've got the Chicago Bears taking Ariante Ursary, I believe it is said, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota, and please correct me if I'm wrong in that pronunciation if you know. This pick should be pretty obvious. The Bears need offensive line help. They took Caleb Williams. If that's your guy, that's your guy. But now you got to build around him. You need to give him time. He's had no time this season, and when you get a guy like Ariante, who for this 6-3 Minnesota Gophers team, he is 6'6", 330. Those are his measurables. That's not what he is for Minnesota. And he has been, ESPN doesn't give stats for offensive linemen, I guess, but he has been very good. He wouldn't be being mocked this high if it wasn't so good. 6'6", 330, and he's not letting dudes get past him. Just take him, develop him, put him with the rest of the guys that you've been drafting. Because I believe 2 years ago they took a right tackle, and now you've got a left tackle on the other side. This guy should be a day one starter for you, start for a decade, and you don't have to worry about Caleb Williams facing pressure from his blind side. 19th overall, I have the Denver Broncos taking Luther Burton III out of Missouri. Shout out Param Crow for that Missouri pronunciation. um, Luther Burton is a guy that could definitely go higher. There's just a lot of other positional needs than wide receiver in this draft class. So wide receivers are probably going to fall because it's not that it's not the most coveted position in football right now, or at least one of, but uh, there's just other overlaying factors that teams have where they have bigger needs and bigger fish to fry. So Luther Burton sees his name fall, but don't get me wrong, this guy is a stud. I'm pretty sure, actually, like a little fun fact, I had him on Snapchat when I was in like middle school or high school or something, and like I don't know, it's a weird thing, I guess, but I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I know for a fact that at one point there was a dude in my Snap named Luther Burton the Third, and he played football. And then I remember seeing he was in 2022 and he was a 5 star, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then he blocked me. So if you see this, Luther, please unblock me. Please. 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 Okay, let's look into his stats. Luther Burton has 40 receptions for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. Missouri is at 6-2 on the season, so I don't think they're having the season that they exactly wanted or planned for. But they're still having a very good season. They're still going to be making making a bowl game. Might not be college football playoff, but they will be making a bowl game. You look at his stats this year, and it's definitely he's on pace with his 2022 stats, because in 2022 he had 45 receptions and 375 yards. This year he has 40 receptions and 450 yards. So with less catches, he has more yards, which is good to see. But last year he had 86 receptions and 1,212 yards and averaged 3 more yards per catch. So I don't really know what's going on there. I think Missouri might have had to change a quarterback, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, Burton is on pace for a similar season in terms of receptions, not really in terms of yards or in terms of his averages, but similar in touchdowns as well, because he had 9 touchdowns last year, and this year already has 4. Moving on to the Cardinals pick, I've got them taking Kenneth Grant, another defensive tackle out of Michigan. And it's yet another one of those picks, you just take it and you don't look back. They need help on the defensive line. I don't think they're generating much pressure right now, but I will double check just to make sure that I'm correct. Yeah, they only have 21 sacks, which is, worse than Steelers numbers, I want to say. Don't know why I said that like that, but yeah, they only have 21 total sacks, and how's their run defense? Sources say that their run defense is going up and down, which is kind of what I was thinking. Kenneth Grant's going to shore up that run defense, which has been very up and down for Arizona this season. He's going to shore up that pass defense because they only have 21 sacks generated on the season. He could probably get a few more than that. And he's going to draw, multiple double teams, being 6'3", 340. So good luck with that running at you at full speed. Good luck stopping that as one person. Yeah, you take him. He helps out your defensive line, which desperately needs help, and you don't look back. Oh, yeah. With the addition of a Diet Coke, we are back. Oh, yeah. Let's get back to mocking. Let's do this thing. All right. 21, Chargers, Colston Loveland. I think this pick makes a lot of sense because, wow, that was a big jolt of energy. God, I love Diet Coke. All right. 21, Colston Loveland, makes a lot of sense. Jim Harbaugh is there. He's got, teammates Junior Colson, teammates. Who else was taken by Michigan for you? Anyways, Chargers need a tight end. They need help for Justin Herbert, get him more receivers, and Colston Loveland, reunites with Jim Harbaugh. I don't think it's that much of a big brain decision. I like this pick a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense. Looking to the Falcons, they do what they should have done last year and take a defensive end, Deonte Walker out of Kentucky. I really like this pick. Deonte Walker this season, let's see. He has been putting up 1.5 sacks, 11 solo tackles, and 0 forced fumbles because, teams are actually double teaming him and taking note of him this year. Kentucky is 3-6, which is not ideal for them. But, you look at last year, he put up 55 total tackles, 20 of them solo, 27 assisted, and 7.5 sacks. That's going to get you attention. That's going to get double teamed in the SEC when you are on a team that does not generate a lot of pressure besides you. Which can be seen by the fact that they're 3-6. You're not getting sacks. You're not getting defensive stops if you're 3-6. So. He's getting double teamed. He's taking the brunt of that. You need to factor that into his season. And when he moves up to an NFL roster that partners him with Matthew Judon. Matthew Judon is who it is. When you partner him with Matthew Judon, uh, who's going to be generating a lot of attention in and of himself. Uh, you get him on the other side, he's going to be one-on-one situations, which he's proved time and time again that he can excel in with the 7.5 sacks last season. The Packers choose not to take a wide receiver and instead take Siobhan Ravel, the defensive back out of East Carolina, in the most Packers pick of all time. I think the Packers look at this pick, they say, this guy is pretty good, having had 2 interceptions and 4 solo tackles of 8 total tackles for his 4-4 team. He does have a defensive touchdown from one of those picks, which is pretty cool. But overall, when you play for a team like East Carolina, it's pretty easy to not get the ball thrown your way when you're a quarterback, and that's kind of what's happening here. Last year, he had a sack, a fumble recovery, and a pick, along with 55 total tackles, 30 of those solo. So he's a great tackler in space, not letting guys get in front of him, or not letting guys get behind him, keeping the plays in front of him, and just being a great shutdown corner who, once again, isn't getting the ball thrown his way because he plays for East Carolina, and it's very easy to take him out of a game when you play for a team like that. If he goes to the Packers already have great Diet Coke break. Man, that's good stuff. The Packers already have a great defensive back room. They got Xavier McKinney in the last offseason, and they got Jair Alexander, who has been a top 5 corner in the league pretty much since he entered. And well, not pretty much since he entered, but he's been a top corner in the league for the majority of his career with Green Bay. You take Siobhan Ravel. Siobhan Ravel is going to get targeted because he's a rookie, and because there are other guys that are better than him on the roster right now. But better than is subjective when you're dealing with a rookie who still has a learning curve and needs to learn how NFL offenses work and learn NFL speed of the game. But he's proven that when he gets the ball thrown his way, he can shut it down, and there's definitely a reason that teams aren't throwing the ball his way right now. Going to pick 24, got the Baltimore Ravens pairing Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely with another wide receiver, this time out of Ohio State, by the name of Emeka Egbuka. This guy could have come out of college last year into the draft. Probably could have been a first or second rounder. Probably could have made a lot of money. Could have made a bag coming out of the wide receiver factory that is Ohio State. I don't like Ohio State personally, being from Michigan, but I have to acknowledge that they have put a lot of very talented wide receivers into the league. So props to them. Give credit where credit is due. You take this guy. This guy's more of a I wouldn't really say that Egbuka is a big play receiver. I would say that he is a very good route runner who gets open, and he's a possession guy who can catch the ball. He doesn't have a lot of drops. So when you got your deep threats and big play ability guys like, your Derrick Henrys, your Zay Flowers, well, Derrick Henry's kind of just a do it all back. But Emeka Egbuka adds a different element to your offense for the Ravens that they don't really have right now, and I really like that mock personally. Let's move on, why don't we? Not sure if he's going to see this, and this is kind of cool that it just happened, but big shout-outs to runner of one of the clubs that I'm in at Michigan State called Fleiss, by the name of Christian Mantuano. Pretty sure I said that right, Christian Mantuano. Big shout outs to you, dude. Just texted me congrats on Brown Table. Said it sounds cool. It is cool, and I really hope that you watch the video and check it out and enjoy it, because I find it kind of funny that you are texting me while I'm making it, which is, it's kind of funny. But yeah, big ups to you, man. You've been a really big help. Really appreciate it. Thank you, and let's get back to the video, starting with Jalen Walker. All right. Texans are taking Jalen Walker, a linebacker out of Georgia. Jalen Walker this season so far has put up 35 tackles, 19 of those being solo, and he's put up 4.5 sacks with 2 fumble recoveries. scoop and score merchant for Georgia. Has definitely seen a big rise in his draft stock due to his play this season. As last year he did, but he put up 5 sacks total. This year he's already at 4.5 due to what I assume is more teams defending Georgia play. But nevertheless, 4.5 sacks is 4.5 sacks, and if you can get pressure, no matter how you are being defended, a sack is a sack at the end of the day. Who really cares? And when you are putting him with Will Anderson, then uh, Will Anderson's going to be getting the majority of the attention on that front. So Jalen Walker should continue to just be able to dominate in one-on-one situations if he develops correctly, which is what he has shown the ability to do. As every single season, he has gotten statistically better, proving that there is a trend of development. The Eagles are going with Tyler Booker, the inner offensive lineman out of Alabama. I really like this pick because after the loss of Kelsey, you, as the Eagles, really need to solidify that offensive front and give Saquon enough tools to continue to dominate and somehow hurdle over dudes backwards. I don't know how he did that, but that is awesome, and that is literally one of the craziest things I've ever seen a running back attempt or complete. It was awesome to watch. Anyways, they take Tyler Booker. They shore up that offensive line. Tyler Booker's been mocked in the first since the beginning. He will be a first rounder, I would assume. Uh, since the beginning, I mean by since the beginning of the us talking about this 2025 draft class, and I don't really see a reason for the Eagles to pass up on him. I don't think that there are many other players that they would want to take here. You're looking at not just BPA, but the best player for your situation. Speaking of the best player for your situation, at 27th overall, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who somehow always stay above 500, are taking Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas, and former 5-star and former Alabama Crimson Tide. Auburn Bowl, or not Auburn Bowl, I'm sorry, Iron Bowl uh, catch receiving winner because he was the one who caught the ball when Jim Miller threw that thing with like no time left. That was crazy. God, I love Diet Coke. Isaiah Bond on the season, dealing with two very, very talented quarterbacks, has put up 4 touchdowns and 23 receptions for 400 yards and averages 16 and a half yards per catch, which is kind of crazy. Like every single catch, you're averaging over a first down and a half. The Steelers, who really, really need help in terms of their receiver room, in terms of they only have George Pickens, who is going to be getting a majority of attention. Isaiah Bond just really adds another element to your offense. He's a guy who can catch a deep ball. He's kind of a do-it-all receiver, I kind of think, measuring in at 5'11", 180. Not a big body, but definitely can catch for possession, can catch for big yards, as he has shown through his 16 and a half average, and he takes attention off of George Pickens. No matter what, I think the Steelers need to take a wide receiver at some point in this draft, either first or second round, and I think that Bond is the right pick for them at this moment in time, but that, of course, just like all of this, just like this entire draft order, all of it is subject to change. I just kind of wanted to take a look at all this uh, as we enter the second half of the season, as we enter post trade deadline. So, with that being said, pick 28, Emory Jones Jr., another LSU offensive tackle. I mentioned earlier, I believe, that there were a lot of LSU offensive tackles on here, being one more. Here's that one more, Emory Jones Jr., certainly being overshadowed by Will Johnson and Calvin Banks. But to his credit, has also put together a great season. He measures in at 6'6", 315, big body. LSU is going to need to, not LSU, what am I talking about? The Vikings are going to need to protect Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy, whoever's starting under center for them next year. And this is the number one way to do that, to reassure up that offensive line, get time for your quarterbacks to get the ball to your playmakers. Because, three facets of everything. Emory Jones is the pick. I don't think there can be much else said about it. I think you just take him, don't look back. My favorite phrase of this entire video, take him and don't look back, but it's so true. Just take him, don't look back, don't even think about it, don't even fret, don't even sweat. Let's move on. Cameron Williams, another Texas offensive tackle, goes here to the Washington Commanders, who have had a surprisingly stellar season. Big props to Jaden Daniels. I did not think he was going to be as good as he was, but apparently I was wrong. Apparently the former Heisman winner, had a chip on his shoulder, had something to prove with no offensive line and no receiving core, and besides Terry McLaurin, and has made something out of nothing. And I can't wait to see how the Commanders choose to build around Daniels. And I think that you start that off by getting him his franchise tackle, with that being Cameron Williams. Take him, plug him. You're not going to have problems with him. Very good offensive lineman for Texas so far, just like Calvin Banks, but he's, overshadowed by him because Calvin Banks has, of course, been a little bit better. But take him, don't look back. You got your, starting tackle for the next decade, and Jane Daniels, your starter for the next decade at quarterback, is going to be very happy. This one might be another one of my favorite mocks that I've made. You're welcome, Andrew. At pick 30, I have the Buffalo Bills taking Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss and former, I believe, Aggie. I want to say. It's not going to tell me here, but I do believe. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. I know he played somewhere in Texas, whether it was Tech, A&M. I know it was one of those two. I believe it was A&M, but I'm not 100% sure. You take him here. You pair him up with Ed Oliver and just let them wreak havoc. Ed Oliver was an absolute dog, still is an absolute dog. Walter Nolan is the former number one overall prospect in 2022. And once again, you just take him. Don't look back. Don't worry about it. Don't fret about it. He's going to be dominant, and him and Ed Oliver in the center of that defensive line is going to be an absolute problem for any running back and any quarterback in the league. 31, I've got the Michigan man Aiden Hutchinson being paired up on the other side with Jack Sawyer, the defensive end out of Ohio State, which should be kind of fun. And then I've got this pick taking place. Jack Sawyer, former five-star. Lions really need some help on that defensive line. The one thing that Lions front has never been able to do is generate enough pressure on opposing quarterbacks because, in my opinion, their cornerback room is set. Their safety room is set. You got Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Taron Arnold, who you just drafted last year, Carlton Davis, and just all those other guys who are putting in great work, putting in, absolute reps, absolute dogs. But you make their job a lot easier when you make the quarterback's job a lot harder, and the way to do that is by generating more pressure on him. You take Jack Sawyer, Aiden Hutchinson is being getting double, triple teamed, held, whatever, but Jack Sawyer's not. You let Jack Sawyer cook. Jack Sawyer on the season being paired with JT Tuimoloau, who I have the Kansas City Chiefs taking next, but we're still on Sawyer, so let's give me a second. Slow down, Halpy. Jack Sawyer on the season is currently at 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and 13 solo tackles on 26 total, so half of his sacks have been solo. He's got one forced fumble and one fumble recovery. I'm not sure if he recovered that exact same fumble or not, but I'll leave that. He did force a fumble and he has recovered a fumble. So whether or not they were the same, who really knows and who really cares? Sawyer is going to wreak havoc as he is being targeted along JT Tuimoloau on that Ohio State front. That Hutchinson's going to be the main issue for offensive lines to worry about. Zach Sawyer should sneak pretty low into the radar. And last but not least, as I mentioned before, we have JT Tuimoloau, the defensive end from Ohio State, going to the third-time Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. At least that's what it says so far. They got the last picks. They're going to be winning the Super Bowl. JT Tuimoloau, former five-star Ohio State defensive end, absolute dog. Probably could have entered the draft last year, been a first-rounder. But let's see what his stats are looking like this season so far. 4.5 sacks, 17 solo tackles on 26 tackles so far. So very similar stats to Sawyer, just a few more sacks. overall very comparable, very similar players. You could probably make the argument to swap to Malau and Slayer. Or not. I did it this way, but there's certainly an argument to be made for the other way. Kansas City in general, could always use to improve. They're just looking BPA, and whether that is Sawyer or to JT Tuimalau, uh, they're looking BPA. They're looking to just keep their team good, keep their team going while Mahomes is still, playing in his prime. Of who knows how long that is, but yeah, I think they gotta go to him allow here. All right, that has been my mock draft. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much if you made it this far in the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, follow us on all of our socials, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out our articles on browntablesports.com. If you made it this far, once again, thank you, and I will see you in our next video. Peace.